Hey, this is Dave again, and again, and again, and again from cheapwinefinder.com. And we're in November, and we just got real. We're doing holiday wines. This time we just did this is a companion podcast. If you go to cheapwinefinder.com, you'll find the written review. If you're getting your podcast from Apple Podcasts, if you hit the button that shows you what the lyrics are, for some reason my review shows up there. I didn't do that, but it's there. That's all I'm okay with that. I didn't mean for them to have it, but they got it, so you can read it. And what we're drinking today is bubbly. And we're Cheap Wine Finder, so we're not doing Cristal, but what we have today is Mumm Napa Valley Brut Rosé. And what that means, this is a rosé of 80% Pinot Noir, 20% Chardonnay from Napa Valley. And Napa Valley, they actually use like 50 different, or they can use up to 50 different vineyards in Napa Valley, which I'll explain that in a minute. So I was like, why are they using all those vineyards? I'll explain that in a second. But, because actually maybe the most iconic entry-level French champagne, they sell 1 million bottles of it, and they use 100 different vineyards in France. And there is a reason why they would use that many, because they're looking for a house style. And so when they use all these different parcels, they independently, each one of these parcels from each vineyard, they are fermenting the first time separately and independently. And with the Mumm Napa Brut Rosé, most of it is going into stainless steel tanks. Now, what they do to each one, that's just how they're doing it, the different processes. There is a kind of an intricate thing going on. And I'll explain that in a minute, too, why. But each one's different, and some of them are in French oak. Each champagne house, and even champagne houses in Napa, a Napa house? No, it's still a champagne house. Every one, to make what they're trying to do is make their wine, their bubbly, their sparkling wine, in a very individual, unique style that you taste it and you go, oh, I know who that is. So the second fermentation is where they pour everything into the bottle. They do the first fermentation, pour it into each bottle. I mean, if they do 500,000 bottles, they're pouring it into 500,000 bottles. And then they take a measured amount of yeast and sugar and put that into 500,000 bottles. It's not an easy process. And they fill it up, temporary cap, and here 18 months. The process for the second fermentation takes 18 months. So that's the traditional method of champagne. In the bottle, it's 1500s champagne, 16th century technology. It's still going that way today. The difference is they use machinery more than they ever did. It used to be really hands-on. It's not so much anymore. It's not easy. There's easier ways to make wine. And but the first fermentation, which no one ever talks about, that's where all the different processes, that's where the secrets are. The second fermentation, once you do that, that's kind of all the same. I mean, like Cava, it's 12 months. It has to be limited to 12, but it usually goes over. Cava is the bubbly from Spain, the Catalonian region. It is made in the same way as champagne, but they use different grapes. And in California, there's a bunch of champagne-style places, wines. And, the champagne has these rules and regulations. 16 months is, 18 months, a year and a half in bottle is kind of like, the average. In California, there is no law about how long in the bottle the second fermentation has to last. There is those laws in champagne. But here it's a year and a half in the bottle. But the magic happens in the first fermentation, which no one talks about because they don't want to give away their secrets. And I'm going to have a sip of this because this is a Pinot Noir-based bubbly. And that's not, if you're used to, typical, if you don't have a lot of taste, not a lot of, you're not drinking a lot of champagne, like most of them are going to be maybe Chardonnay, base for the most part, maybe a little bit of Pinot Noir, but mostly Chardonnay. And these Pinot Noir, 80% Pinot Noir bubbles are going to taste very different. And I'm going to take a sip right now. Yeah. This Mumm's Napa Brut Rosé is a tasty, tasty wine. The best bubbly I ever had, it was a long, long time ago. I don't know, it might have been my very first champagne. I mean, maybe at a wedding somewhere I had something else, but I actually went to a bar, champagne bar, and got a bottle, and it was a Blanc de Noir. That means white wine from red grapes in French, which means it was 100% Pinot Noir. This is 80% Pinot Noir, 20% Champagne. And it was the best wine I have never had a better wine since. And I didn't know enough back in the day to know that they're not all this good. I mean, I was like, oh, that's really nice. I love this. But I figured the next one would be the exact same thing, and it wasn't. And I've never found it. But I am partial to Pinot Noir-based champagne-style wines, sparkling wines. And that's why I kind of picked the Rosé rather than just the regular old Brut. And there's a reserve wine that Mumm's California has too, which is a few bucks more, which has probably got a little bit more aging to it. But 18 months is good. I mean, aging can get, it can make it more complex than everything else. But at some point, good is good, So I'm going to have another sip. This stuff has got great acidity. I love lip smacking acidity in my wines. It just makes you want to take another sip. I mean, it's just one of those things. You don't want, wine that doesn't have much acidity, you might take a while to drink. The one that has like too much acidity might kind of burn and give you heartburn later that night. But this one is right where it's supposed to be. You are constantly going, I think I need another sip because the acidity is just where it needs to be. And this one's got some black cherry and some vanilla. And it's got some grapefruit too, but not tart grapefruit. It's just that little crisp acidity thing. It's got crispness, but it's got red berries, and yeah, it's really kind of nice. And there's minerality on the mid palate, which should be there too. In Champagne, they got limestone underneath so you're getting the limestone minerality in Champagne. But in this Napa thing, we're getting some. Napa's got all sorts of hills and valleys and volcanic things going on, so you're going to get some minerality out of that too. Which there is the other question. This I found for $16 on sale. And the GH Mumm version is, I think, Cordon Rouge is their entry level, and that's going to be like $37 to $40. This is 16. That's like 40% of the price of the French stuff. Is the French stuff twice as good? And without a bottle of it being here, maybe it is because they did a really good version with they did a great job with Napa. Maybe with the French stuff, it's even better, but I doubt it. I mean, I understand that French Champagne vineyards are excellent vineyards for sparkling wine, and they have been for a long time, and the winemakers know what they're doing in the vineyards, but is Napa that far behind in anything? And the equipment to make bubbly, it's kind of uniform. Back in the day when it was all hands-on, it was a different story. But nowadays, I don't know. I mean, everybody can buy the equipment, and anybody with the money can buy the equipment, and you get to use it, you figure it out, and what's the difference? And since this is also Mumm's, they've been in France for see how many years is that now? Since like 1825, making their wines, and they're not hiding stuff from the Napa version. They're getting all the knowledge there too. So here's a knowledgeable French champagne house out of Napa. Is Napa grapes that much worse than Champagne grapes that has cost 40% of what the Champagne style does? Is that really, is that something that's real? I don't know. And without having a bottle of the French stuff here to go, but I'm assuming if this stuff tastes great and has good acidity and I'm really happy, how much more will twice the price, buy me. And that's it for me, because that's something you got to think about when you're buying wine. Is the price of champagne because it's what it costs out there? Is it because of marketing, or because that's the that's the Ferrari of wines? It's the top of the line. You got to pay more for it. Or you go to Napa Valley, which I always thought was pretty much the top of the line too. So why is it 40% or 60% of the price? So yeah, if you find Mumm's Brut, I like Pinot Noir. If you like the Chardonnay stuff better, that's fine. But I kind of like the Pinot Noir based stuff myself. And this will work. This is New Year's Eve, and it's $16 at 40% of what the other stuff is. Well, you can buy a bunch more of this. You can have more parties. You can have the party last longer. And, well, and that's it. We're going to have more bubbly coming up and talk more about bubbles and the pricing and everything else, because is the pricing what it should be, or is the less expensive stuff often bringing a lot of value? I mean, serious value. Well, that's it for me. This is Dave. Keep it cheap. It's kind of cheap because this is like $16 or $17 Napa Valley bubbly. It ain't, it's hard to call it cheap, but it is good. So adios and keep it cheap. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.